Welcome to Poddy, April 26, 2026. Today, we're diving into something that affects every single one of us, how AI is becoming absolutely essential in ways most people don't even realize yet. We've got some fascinating stories from Reddit that show AI isn't just some distant tech trend anymore. It's literally changing lives for people with disabilities. It's creeping into college classrooms in weird ways, and it's helping regular folks crack systems they never thought they could understand. This isn't about robots taking over. This is about AI becoming as basic as having internet access. Let me start with something that honestly made me emotional when I read it. There's this open letter to Anthropic, that's the company behind Claude AI, from someone who describes themselves as autistic and a max-level user at the 20x tier. They're talking about running multiple high-level projects using Claude Cowork, which is basically Claude helping with collaborative work. And here's what got me. They say they've had super organized Google Drive files for 20 years, with systems and methods they've been sharing with people in person for years. 20 years of their visionary and creative process, and finally, they have the tools to really implement it. Now, the letter gets cut off in what I saw, but what's clear is this person has found something transformative in AI collaboration tools. And you know what? This is exactly why everyone should care about AI development. We're not talking about some sci-fi future here. We're talking about people with different neurological makeups, finally having tools that work with their brains instead of against them. For someone who's autistic, having an AI that can help organize, structure, and implement complex creative processes, that's not just helpful, that's life-changing. It's like finally having a conversation partner who gets your thinking style. But here's what really strikes me about this, and this is my take. We're seeing the early stages of AI becoming an accessibility tool in ways the original developers probably never imagined. When Anthropic built Claude, they were probably thinking about general productivity and writing assistance. But what's happening is people are discovering that AI communication styles actually match how some neurodivergent people naturally think and process. It's systematic, it's patient, it doesn't get frustrated with detailed questions, and it can help translate complex internal systems. Now let's flip to something that's honestly pretty concerning. There's a post from someone taking an online art history class, Introduction to Art, and they're describing how their teacher apparently uses AI for assignments. They can tell because of how the assignments are structured, how the text is formatted. Plus, there are incorrect dates and information. But here's the kicker. Each unit, students have to talk to an AI about the content. And now, for their next assignment, the teacher wants them to generate AI art and have a discussion about these quote-unquote artworks. The student calls this a genuine interpretation of machine-created content. Okay, so there's a lot to unpack here, and honestly, this feels like education at a crossroads moment. On one hand, I get that art teachers need to acknowledge AI art exists, and students should understand it. But requiring students to generate AI art in an art class? That feels like asking someone to microwave a meal in a cooking class. The whole point of art education is developing your own creative voice, learning to see differently, building technical skills with your hands and eyes. If you're just prompting an AI, what exactly are you learning about art? My read is this teacher has probably gotten overwhelmed by AI hype and thinks they need to integrate it everywhere to stay relevant. But there's a difference between teaching students to critically analyze AI-generated content and making AI generation the actual assignment. It's like the difference between teaching media literacy about deepfakes versus teaching students how to make deepfakes. One builds critical thinking, the other just builds technical dependency. And honestly, if the teacher is already using AI to create assignments with incorrect information, That suggests they don't really understand the tool they're pushing on students. But let's look at a completely different angle on AI usefulness. Someone on Reddit shared how they simulated 36,000 games of Catan to test conventional wisdom about strategy. And this is fascinating. They built heuristic Python agents, each a few hundred lines of code that takes the game state and picks the best legal action based on strategy-specific scoring functions. No LLMs, no language models, just pure algorithmic. A typical agent was something like maximize pip count and diversity with slight biases toward certain resources based on strategy. Now, what I love about this is it shows AI being used as a research tool to actually test assumptions. Instead of just arguing about Catan strategy in forums forever, someone actually built a system to simulate tens of thousands of games and see what works. Some conventional wisdom held up, some really. And you know what? This is exactly the kind of AI application that should excite everyone. It's not replacing human creativity or judgment. It's doing the boring, repetitive work of testing hypotheses at scale, so humans can focus on the interesting insights. This connects to something bigger that I think people miss about AI's real value. It's not about making humans obsolete. It's about letting humans be more human. The person who ran those Catan simulations still had to understand game theory, design the experiments, interpret the results, and decide what questions to ask. The AI just did the tedious work of playing 36,000 games perfectly consistently. That's the kind of human-AI collaboration that actually makes sense. Machines doing what they're good at, so people can focus on what we're uniquely good at. And speaking of practical applications, there's this post about someone who claims they cracked the dating app algorithm with a strategy for average guys. Now, this is marked as more of a discussion than a confirmed method, but the concept is interesting. They describe it as essentially the male version of the burned haystack dating method, which is apparently about women ruthlessly blocking low-effort men to find quality matches. This person was a late-30s divorcee who was getting buried by the apps and realized that if you're average-looking, you need to game the system differently. Now, I can't verify if this method actually works, but what's interesting is how people are approaching dating apps like algorithmic puzzles to solve. And honestly, that makes sense because that's exactly what they are. These apps use machine learning to decide who sees your profile, when, and in what order. If you're not thinking about the algorithm, you're basically playing a game without understanding the rules. My guess is that any systematic approach probably works better than just hoping for the best, whether it's this specific method or just being more intentional about photos and timing. But here's what really gets me about all these stories. They show regular people becoming algorithm aware in their daily lives. Whether it's someone with autism, finding AI that matches their thinking style, or someone reverse engineering dating app matching, or someone simulating board games to test strategy. People are starting to understand that algorithms aren't just mysterious black boxes. They're tools you can learn to work with, optimize around, and even use for your own purposes. And that brings me to one more crucial example. There's a post in an ADHD women's forum urging people to get their iron checked. The author points out that people with ADHD, especially women, seem to be persistently low in iron, and iron deficiency makes ADHD symptoms dramatically worse. They're recommending ferritin level checks, noting that optimal levels should be around 125, and under 30 indicates absolute iron deficiency. You can even get ferritin deficiency tests from pharmacies now. Just a pinprick, easy to use. Now, this might not seem like an AI story, but stick with me, it actually is. What we're seeing is people using online communities and data sharing to identify patterns that traditional healthcare sometimes misses. Someone noticed a correlation between ADHD and iron deficiency, shared it widely, and now hundreds of people are getting tested and potentially improving their quality of life. That's crowdsourced medical insight happening in real time. And as AI tools get better at analyzing health data and identifying patterns, this kind of community-driven health optimization is going to become way more powerful. So here's my big takeaway from all of this. AI isn't just about ChatGPT or self-driving cars or whatever makes headlines. It's becoming woven into how we solve everyday problems, from accessibility, needs, to educational challenges, to personal optimization. The people who understand this early and learn to work with these tools are going to have huge advantages. Whether you're neurodivergent and need better organizational systems, or you're trying to understand complex games, or you're navigating dating apps, or you're optimizing your health, AI is becoming as essential as knowing how to use Google. The question isn't whether AI will affect your life. It already is. The question is whether you're going to be intentional about learning how to use these tools effectively, or whether you're going to let them just happen to you. My advice? Start experimenting now with the accessible tools. Stay curious about how algorithms work in the apps and services you already use. And remember that the goal isn't to become dependent on AI, it's to become more capable as a human. Thanks for diving deep with me today. And definitely do your own research on any of these topics that caught your interest.